Okay, today's topic is arrays, and okay, pencil. We have already learned variables, and for example, int x equals to 2. It is a variable, but if we want to x1, x2, x3, x4, and xn, for this instance, we cannot use just nx, and it's very complicated to just define so many variables, and also we cannot use for to look for all the elements about x. Okay, what will we learn today? One-dimensional arrays, two-dimensional arrays, the array list, class, the list, interface. We have learned object-oriented programming last class, so we can learn these objects as examples of the OOP. One-dimensional arrays. These are the most simple form of arrays. Initialization. We can define a variable like int x equals to 2, so we can also define a variable like int a equals to 1, 2, 3, like it mentions in the last line. Okay, and so this is the initialization of arrays. After initialization, we can utilize them to access an element in an array. We can use this method. For example, int b equals to a2, and we will get b equals to 3 because a2 is the third element in the array named a. Length of array. String is a special form of array, so we can also use string as an example of an array. String names equals to new string. This is the initialization of the string array. But string array is an array, not a string. For example, if we want to get the first character in string in the first element in the string array, we can just use names 0 point char at 0. This is the method we get the first element of the first object in the array. So string array is kind of confusing, I know. For int I equals to 0, I less than names point length I plus plus. So we can use this sentence, this statement, to travel the array, like it mentions on this slide. So we can just insert a sentence into it. System dot out the print line names I, and it will print 25 lines, and each line is a string and is an object in the array. Size. So we can see the difference here. For an array, the length don't contain the brackets, and for length of a string, it should contain the brackets. It's also confusing. Traversing an array. These two methods we have already mentioned in the part, in the Java basics part, and this is the this is the more convenient usage of for loop. In other programming languages, it can, like C#, it can be written as for each, or it can be also written as for each in JavaScript. So the num is an element in the array, not the same as I. So if we want to output the elements in the array, we can just put different sentences in these two brackets. System dot out dot print line none. This system dot out dot print line both of them can get the same result in the instance. Arrays and as parameters. Do you remember parameters? We had just mentioned in the definition of methods, the functions. For example, public static void main string args. This is a method of function, and args is the parameters. This is also an array, string array. For example, we can make an instance. For example, public static int void plus int a int b, and we just use a this can make no effect, so this is a wrong usage of parameters, but we can just use raise as this. This can take effect. So the why this can encounter it is because int A and int B are copies of the true element, but int array, the array is not a copy, it is a reference. So the elements in the array can be updated in this void method. Array variables in a class. Array can also be variables in a class, like we mentioned earlier. For example, public class A, and we can set int array equals to 1, 2, 3, and it. And we can define this class A, initialize this class A equals to new A, and we can public, and we can access the array inside it. Array, for example, system and we will get 3. Array of class objects. So as we initialized, we can also initialize like that. For example, A equals to new A. This is also legal, but we cannot bash initialize the class objects by this method with parameters. Okay, the list interface. We might this interface. Features. Access an element at any position in the list using its integer index. Insert an element anywhere in the list. Iterates over all elements using list iterator or character. The third feature won't be tested in the AP Computer Science A exam. Methods, just like we mentioned before, is just like the usage of normal arrays, but it has more functions. For example, add size is the length of array, and get is this, and this is also this. For example, we can set array list int a new array. Okay, and output a dot size, and we will get 0 here. A dot add integer. This is the add and output a dot get 0 will get day2, and remove is we can just remove an element in the list. For example, the list is 1, 2, 3, and the index 0, 1, 2, and we execute remove 1, and then this list will be 1, 2, no 1, 3, because the element on the third, the index 1, the element is removed, and the array becomes 1, 3. Array list E class. It implements list, so and list is an abstract class. So list cannot be initialized natively, because it is an abstract class. If we want to use a list, we should use the ArrayList class. It is a normal class. So this is wrong. This is wrong usage. We can use ArrayList this is legal. Array list. New array list. This is also legal. So please pay attention to it and know what can use and what cannot use on the AP exam. Two-dimensional arrays is just like what we mentioned in the one-dimensional array. For example, its declarations is very similar. For example, E array equals to 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and then it's two-dimensional. We use this as x, this as y. So x, y, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when we output, when we get the value of array 0 and 0, we will get 1. Okay, this is processing, just like Jefferson. It is also very similar at what we did in the one-dimensional arrays. And I will give you some time to digest digest the meaning of this process. Okay, we can continue. Two-dimensional arrays as parameters. This is just as we did in the one-dimensional arrays. We can just use void plus int array int a int b, and we can set a value in the array a b equals to 1, and this can make a fact. So that's all of the contents for arrays. what do you think about today's class? Feel free to ask me questions if you have any.